Hey there, in the last video we took a brief introduction into Supabase and looked at how to implement authentication along with Flutter. So that part is pretty much done, and you can view the last video in order to get an essence of it. So basically, to review it, the Supabase extends a few functions which we can basically use in order to authenticate, similar to Firebase, and the process is quite similar. And one thing I forgot to mention in the last video, and it was that to set the minimum SDK version to 19, otherwise you might face some issues. So in the app level build.gradle, you want to simply set the minimum SDK version to 19 and the app would compile just fine. So I'll set the project to run as well, so let's run it at the moment. Okay, until then let's see how to set up the database, right? So for database, we just mentioned that we're using Postgres in Supabase. So basically I've created a table previously, but I'm going to delete it and we'll be starting from the beginning. So let's see how to delete this database. So we can delete the table, and yeah, we can delete everything, right? So we have deleted the table items. Okay, so basically in order to create a table, you need to do it from the interface or the SQL editor itself. So the table editor is quite easy, and in the SQL editor you are supposed to write the query yourself, but yeah, that is not what I would suggest. If you know SQL, you can definitely go for that, but currently we'll be using the table editor. So you can simply create a new table, and I will name it items, and you can leave the rest as it is. So let's create a table, and this has to be done from the Supabase interface only, and you cannot do it via the Flutter itself, right? So here you are supposed to design your database. So these two fields will be already mentioned here, ID and created at. Let's add another field or column, you may say. So let's say name. The description is optional, we leave it. Type is basically string or text here, right? And the default value we can say no name or something. Okay, and we can allow nullable, or we can close that as well. Okay, so you can see all these options here, right? So once we save it, so we have added it here, right? Let's add one more. Let's say phone. Now phone is basically a number, but it is stored as a string, right, in the server. So we will again select text here, because if we store it as a number, the number will be quite big, right? So we can also define array here if we want, but currently we are using phone. And let's say we don't want to allow nullable here, and let's save it. Right, so we have now 4 columns: ID, created at, name, and phone. Next, what we would like to do is go to our Flutter application, and it is running. So I'll show you the authentication, because previously I was not able to show it. Let's say we want to sign up. Okay, so we'll be going to the sign up page, and basically it is stuck. So yeah, that is it. And let's say what we want to do is aster@gmail.com, and let's say password is password. So we will sign up, and we can see that we have signed up and we are in the home page. And basically you can also see that you have signed up from the authentication panel. So you can see all the users here. So this was the account that I just created, right? And you can also add providers from here if you want different providers, so you can also do that, but currently we are using basic email, so that is the case here. And now let's see how to use this table, right? So basically let's go to the documentation, and we can see that in the database we can see that we can fetch the data using the select command, right? And then we have insert using the insert, update using match, update using update, and match to pass the property which we want to match, right? Then we have upsert data, basically update, right? And then we have delete, right? So we'll be looking into insert and getting in this video. So let's go over to our demo, and basically let's see our home page. So I'll open the home page layout for you. So this is our home page, right? So you can see in the interface we have 2 buttons. One is to add data, another one is to get data, right? So we have created a class by the name of DB service. We are creating an instance, and we are calling add item and get item when these buttons are clicked. and finally we are using a future builder to render all the output that we get from get all items, right? So that is basically the interface. Now let's see what we have in DB service. In DB service we are basically using the same client, and using the client we are getting the items, right? So as mentioned in the documentation, we use select in order to get the item and insert in order to insert the item, right? So let's save this and let's try to run this, right? So let me open the terminal as well. So let's say add data, and we are getting an error, as you can see, right? So this is what you would initially get. So you can say that unhandled exception, Postgres exception, new row violates row level security, right? So basically we are getting an security issue. So let's see what it is. So basically in Supabase you can go to the authentication panel, go to policies, and you can see that your table would be mentioned here. So Supabase by default comes with a policy where insert, delete and all types of operations are closed for every user. Okay, so we need to edit that, and basically you can learn about the Supabase row level security as well, and I will link this video down below. Okay, so let's see how to edit this one. So we are basically supposed to create a new policy, right? So we can use a template. So basically we can use a template or create a custom one. So I'll be using a template here, and then we have 4 templates here. Basically access to everyone, then authenticated user, and then basis on email, on then basis of user ID. So we want to use the authenticated user one, okay, but we want not insert only, we want all the functions to the authenticated user. So I'll change the name as well to enable all actions. Let's say all actions for authenticated users only, right? So that would do it. And in this expression we are simply supposed to return true, because we are basically checking the authentication here and nothing else is supposed to be checked, right? So that is done, and let's say, and this is the final SQL generated for us, and we do not need to do anything. Let's say save policy, and now that is saved, right? Now if we go back to our application, let's bring application back and let's try to add data, and now you can see that we do not get an error, but we do get a null. And for that I suppose that the select function does not have a not the select one, but the add item, the insert one, does not return a valid output or a valid response. So that is some issue with the Supabase itself. But yeah, our item is being added and you can basically see it. You can go to the table editor, and under items you can see that we have our new item here. So basically name, master and phone, this, right? So let's go back to the code. So we were basically from items table we were inserting name and phone, and that has been inserted. The created at and ID was auto generated, right? So we can basically see that we did not pass these 2 fields, but they were auto generated by Supabase itself. And now let's see how to get the items. So let's say get data, and we can see that we are getting the data here, right? We are getting ID2 and this all. So let's how to load this application, and now you can see the data here as well. So basically we have only one item added at the moment, so we are getting only one item here. Let's say we add another data, right? So it returns null, because just I told that the insert does not return a valid response. So you can see that the item is being added in the database itself, right? So I hope that you are able to understand how to create a table and how to handle the policies in Supabase. And this is something different from the Firebase, but we have policies there as well. But yeah, this is the policy in Supabase, and you can basically check out the row level security blog on this as well. So basically it is explained why the row level security and how it is used. You can also disable the row level security, and that would enable anyone to access the application, and that is not quite expected, right? So that is it about the policies and the database. So you can see your tables here. You can then edit and add here, right? You can add a new column from this panel as well, and then you can view all the data from the table editor. So here you can view all the data. You can add new tables and then access them using the from, right? So let me show you. So basically we are using client. The client is basically a Supabase instance.client, and from basically defines that from which table we want to extract the data or operate upon the data. So from items table we want to select all the data. Here we can also mention the conditions, like what all do we want, like we want name and phone, so that we can mention here, right? And then we would get response only in those fields, right? Similar to Mongoose, like we do in Node.js. Similarly, we can pass the fields here and get only that data, right? Then we can also sort it accordingly, right? So basically we have range if you want in the range, and then we have filter and various methods here. You can check those out in the documentation itself, right? So in the documentation you will be able to see all these things, right? Use filters, column equal to value, column less than a value, these all things you can use, right? And then in the add item also we are using the from items, so that would be similar for each statement, but on that table we want to insert, so we are using the insert command and passing the data as well, right? And if the data does not match, then we will get an error, but if it adds it successfully, we do not get a success message, but we get a null, and that is some issue from the Supabase end. But yeah, that is it about inserting data and handling policies in Supabase, and I hope you like this tutorial. And again, in this video also I'd like to mention that Supabase hackathon is going on, so make sure to participate in that, right? And that is the reason why I'm creating this basically introduction to Supabase videos. So basically I want you to participate in this as well, right? So amazing people here, and you would be basically getting rewards, and if not rewards, you will get a new tech stack item basically, right? So test out Supabase, right? So yeah, I hope that you got the point, and see you later. Peace.